you could almost argue that once we've done the sourcing process, we've always got pipelines in place, it's a 3-step process. Talent screen, functional assessment, final interview, decision made. And we can get through that process depending on how we're traveling from a hiring perspective. I think we've had final interviews, talent screen on a Monday, final interview Tuesday, and an offer by Tuesday afternoon. Purely simply because it's not. If we're speaking to engineer A or B, I can guarantee you that engineer A or B are speaking to several different other studios.
Hi everyone, delighted to welcome Jaymes Chapman to the pod today. Jaymes is a VP of Talent Acquisition over at the Multiplayer Group. How are you, Jaymes?
I'm good, Mike. Yeah, thank you for asking.
Great stuff. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. And I know you're particularly busy at the moment, and there's been some really exciting news over at MPG after the recent acquisition by Keywords.
Correct. Yeah. That happened on officially on the 16th of December last year, and then announced on the stock market on the 17th, Monday the 17th.
So exciting times.
Yeah, really exciting. Lots to do. Obviously, we need to replicate what happened last year, but enhance that by 15% as well.
Good on you, mate. Good on you. Exciting times. So, Jaymes, for those that don't know, you've got a really, really varied background. And for me, it's one of the most exciting topics that I get to speak to people about, how they got into the gaming industry. And if you don't mind, if you could share with everyone your route to where you are now, because I think it's a particularly eventful one.
Yeah. I think I applied my hands in a number of things. Originally started off playing professional rugby many moons ago. That didn't really work out for a number of reasons, mainly due to injury and so on and so forth. I then left playing professional rugby and joined the armed forces, where I spent a number of years. One of those being on an operational tour. Left the forces and then went into private security, which is a natural progression out of the armed forces and into that industry. And then from there, I found recruitment. So talking around about 15, 16 years ago now. Applied my trade, did the stuff in the city, worked predominantly in software and technology as a recruitment consultant, and then worked for some really established organisations and kind of worked my way up from there. I've been involved in the games industry now coming up to 7 years. It was by chance that I got the opportunity to work in a mobile game studio, a company called Nordius, who are headquartered out of Belgrade in Serbia. Never ever been to Serbia in my life. Went out to meet the leadership team there and go through the process for interview. Got the role and then relocated out to Serbia, where I found, I suppose, where my passion lied. I've obviously always been in software and tech, but specifically, obviously, gaming within that sphere of software and technology is something I didn't realize I was, but very passionate about now. As I've learned an awful lot around what goes on in the make of a game and how it's progressed and established, and then pushed out to market for users to play on. I spent about a year and a half at a studio in Serbia, working on mobile games, or at least supporting them from a talent perspective. And then I relocated back home and basically worked with Andy Norman, who's now obviously the CEO of MPG. I worked with him. In fact, he was the first person I met when I flew to Serbia. He was an executive producer there working on Top 11, which is a really reputable football game for Nordius. And we've been really, really good friends and close ever since. So he called me out of the blue one day and said, Chappers, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm just in transition and interviewing for a role with Airbus at the time. And he said, I didn't realise you were looking for a role. We need a head of talent at the time. Again, my role's progressed since then. Can you come and see us in Nottingham? I went to see them, and the rest is history. So we've evolved since then. But yeah, been involved in the games industry for about 7 years. But originally joined the multiplayer guys, as what they were at the time. We have gone through 3, maybe 4 rebrands since then. So since 2019. We changed from the multiplayer guys to the multiplayer group because we didn't think guys was relatively inclusive. And we've had several rebrands since then and come to where we are now. Obviously,
what a journey.
Yeah, great journey. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
And I think when we first started working together, Chappers, and I don't know if it was late 2019, early 2020, but multiplayer guys, as they were back then, had recently been acquired by Improbable. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you were circa 60 people at that point.
Yeah, so I arrived just before the acquisition in 2019. We were, I think back then, we were at 36 people. Wow. So I arrived, I think I was employee number 36. In fact, I'm pretty sure I was. And then, we've gone through, obviously, the support of GameLogic. We've gone through exponential growth throughout that 4-year period. And now we sit at around about 370 people.
That's phenomenal, so, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, certainly for this industry, that growth is it's quite unheard of, really, in the grand scheme of things. Certainly for our business model as well, because for those who don't know, we don't actually own any of our own IP, because we are obviously co-dev and full dev.
And I wanted to ask you about that, Chappers, if you don't mind. And I'm sure there's certain things that you can't reveal, but are you able to give us a flavour or an example of some of the studios that you've worked with over the years and some of the games that your team at Multiplayer Group have helped to get out there?
Yeah. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is obviously what was Mediatonic. It still is Mediatonic now. Obviously part of the Epic Epic Group, but we was responsible for Fall Guys.
It's my daughter's favourite game, by the way.
Which was I think probably one of the, if not the best success stories in the games industry. I think I'd probably say back in 2021 now. But we've worked with Epic for a number of years now with Mediatonic and some of their other IP. Rare is another one that we've worked with. We work with Machine Games, ZeniMax Online Studios, who are now obviously part of Microsoft, Activision. We work with 2K as well, who are actually not a AAA studio, but a publisher. Arcane Studios. I can't really name the IP that we work on for obvious reasons because we're locked into NDA, but some really kind of reputable AAA game studios and publishers is on our portfolio of projects that we support.
And what I always think when I'm talking to people that either work at Multiplayer Group or other co-dev studios about opportunities is I always think what a fantastic opportunity to get exposure to different projects with different studios, right? Which you wouldn't necessarily get working directly for a studio or a publisher, right?
Yeah, it's one of, and I'm not particularly keen on this word, but it is one of our kind of USPs, is giving the opportunity for individuals who are coming into such as an MPG to work on a project that they're super passionate about. So they get the opportunity to say, well, I really like working on MMOs, and we have several of those. Or we like to people who like to work on fantasy games. Like it's given the opportunity to be able to make sure that people are working on projects that they're super passionate about and they're going to be really enthused by. So We wouldn't never, if we had someone who said, I really don't like working on racing games, the likelihood is we're not going to suggest them to work on a racing game, right? So, it's a really, it's a really great way of making sure that we're obviously adhering to our people first policies, people first kind of DNA, and making sure that we spend an awful lot of time at work, right? Majority of our time is work, and we need to balance that out. So making sure that you're working on projects that are going to keep you enthused and looking forward to coming to work.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I think you guys must take huge credit for what you're doing there. And as we've experienced in 2023, I'm afraid not everybody in the gaming industry is as conscientious as MPG about looking after their people, right?
No, it's probably been. I mean, obviously, again, I can only speak for the last several years, but it's probably been one of the toughest years I've seen throughout my exposure to the games industry. Lots of studios closing down, lots of reputable historical IP closing studios. But I mean, it's strange because the games industry is obviously a multi-billion-dollar industry. People are still playing games. People will always be playing games. I think it's just probably not managed correctly. That's all. But look, I don't know what goes on behind closed doors in these studios. All I know is what goes on with MPG. But I think 2024 might be similar. But I also think that there are people like MPG and some other core dev studios that are probably going to be in a position where they can support layoffs and closures.
Yeah, I hope you're right. One thing I'm really keen to ask you about, Jaymes, and I nearly gave you a shout out on LinkedIn last week, actually. I put a post out about hiring managers dragging candidates through long processes and not really being able to make decisions. And I think one thing that you guys have done really, really well, and credit to you, mate, is your hiring process was absolutely nailed. And I know we had some months where you guys were onboarding 15, 20 people in a month, like no problem. Yeah. And proof's in the pudding, right? You can from 36 people to 370, multiplied the workforce by more than 10 in 4 years, which is unbelievable. Are you able to give a bit of an insight in your role as VP of Talent Acquisition, like how you go about doing that? Because I think there's a lot that other people at other studios could learn.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about this quite often, and it's there's no magic sauce or recipe for this. I think what it is it's just making sure that your candidate experience is absolutely nailed on, right? You're having meaningful conversations with people and building those relationships. But ultimately, when we pull the trigger on hiring, I think you mentioned there, like when we were hiring at like velocity speeds, I think we had onboarding in 1 month. I think we managed to like get 22 people on board again in an industry that is very much, I would say, you're not trying to find people for financial services and banking, right? Which, the talent pool is relatively small within the games industry because it's quite niche. Whether or not people have worked on specific engines or they've worked on specific AAA games, there's the criteria that we need to meet, certainly for our business model. So what we do is we keep it really basic and simple. That's not to say that the quality is missed, because it's not, because we've got a funnel that supports being able to make sure that we're making sure candidate experience again is key, and that we're making sure that we're finding the right people. It goes back to what you mentioned previously as well, making sure that people come through our process, that we are fully transparent about what we do. To a certain degree, obviously NDAs lock us into certain areas where we can't discuss, but we make sure that we're transparent through that process. It's relatively quick as well because, like I mentioned previously, the talent pool is relatively small. So from a filtered process, we go from a sourcing process, qualification review, ultimately a talent screen that then goes into kind of explaining a little bit around the culture of MPG, where we've come from, where we are now, and where we're going. There's a functional assessment which is in the form of a C++ exercise if necessary, or a technical process, which is, again, it's not a pass or fail process. It's just to see kind of what standard you're at. Final interview, offer. So you could almost argue that once we've done the sourcing process, we've always got pipelines in place, it's a 3-step process: talent screen, functional assessment, final interview, decision made. And we can get through that process depending on how we're traveling from a hiring perspective. I think we've had final interviews, talent screen on a Monday, final interview Tuesday, and an offer by Tuesday afternoon. Purely simply because it's not. If we're speaking to engineer A or B, I can guarantee you that engineer A or B are speaking to several different other studios.
Yeah, absolutely.
We need to have that differentiator in place where we make sure that we're enhancing the experience by making sure candidate experience is great, fully transparent. We've got an open door policy at MPG as well, where a software engineer can speak to CEO, and that line of communication is always open. And it also helps with some of the IP that we're working on as well.
Yeah,
But it's really simple.
And it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. And I think what's worth mentioning as well, this is with a global workforce as well. This is with consultants and members of staff based all over the world. And, there's been multiple times when we've worked together, James, and like you said, I think they've even been still on the call with you and Rock potentially, and it's like, right, keep them warm, we like this guy, and an offer's gone out within an hour.
Yeah,
but that's how you get good people on board. Like, 100%.
Well, and that also it goes to show that we're not interviewing for the sake of interviewing, right? And I know a lot of organisations do that from a pipelining perspective, but when we're in a position to make sure that we want the best individual or what we think is the best individual for MPG, we move quickly because we can make our own decisions, but also ultimately, we need to make sure that we're making sure that candidate experience is amazing. But yeah, like you say, across globally, UK, Canada, Serbia, Spain, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, we've got a global footprint in pretty much most of Western and Eastern Europe.
Yeah, fair play to you. Absolutely nailing it, mate. I know you're short on time, so I've got 2 questions left for you.
Sure.
We all know about 2023 and how tough that was for so many. What are your predictions for 2024? What's going to change in the industry? Is it going to be tougher than last year? Are we going to see more layoffs? What do you see happening?
I think it'd be naive of me to say that I think we won't see layoffs. I think we will. But again, it goes back to what I mentioned previously. There'll still be games being made. IP will need working on, historical and new IP. Again, it's just how that's managed within certain studios and publishers. I think 2024 will be quite a pivotal year for the games industry. I think we'll see some changes. I don't know what they'll be, but I think engine-based platforms, engine-based games might start creeping away slightly. But I'm thinking that it can't be as bad as it was last year.
I think we're all hoping the same, right?
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to getting your hands on this year? What's coming out that you can't wait to see play?
I'm looking forward to, I'd say probably the new Mortal Kombat. Nice. I've still not played the new Call of Duty 3, Modern Warfare. It's still wrapped in its box upstairs.
Been busy with the takeover.
Yeah, so I still need to unpeel that and plug that into the PS5. But yeah, I think ultimately Mortal Kombat. What about yourself?
I'm looking forward to Tekken coming out next week. I have got a bit of a backlog. I've got it used to be FIFA, FC24. I need to get stuck into. I'm always playing Football Manager because I'm just trying to get Portsmouth promoted. I have just started Ghost of Tsushima, which
Nice.
I'm really enjoying. There was a recommendation from someone in here. Not usually my kind of genre, but I'm pretty busy with that at the moment. And then with my little girls, they love Fall Guys. They absolutely love it. So
yeah, what's not to love?
Yeah, so I've got lots on the go at the moment. And then I'll tell you what else I'm looking forward to. I haven't really... I've looked at Jan. What's coming out in Jan? Right, Tekken. Aside from that, I mean...
I think Suicide Squad is also, the Kill the Justice League. That's going to be a really, I think, a force to be reckoned with this year. You've also got Star Wars Outlaws. That's going to be a great IP this year as well, which I think I'll be looking forward to playing. I think there's going to be some really good releases.
I need to start planning what's coming out each month and allocate some time to it.
Yeah.
James, we've gone on for way longer than I promised you we would, and I know you're short of time. Thank you so much. I always really, really enjoy our conversations, mate. You always give me lots of nuggets of information, and I really, really appreciate it as always.
Pleasure.
Hopefully catch up with you real soon, eh?
Great stuff. Thanks, Mike.